Good morning. Hello, all. Good morning, good morning. I'm Jennifer Eubank here for the Hips Don't Lie. A little bit of yoga this morning, so if you're here, type a little chat and let me know you're here so I can say howdy. And we'll get started in just a moment. You don't really need any prompts today unless you might want a blanket to sit on. I always have a blanket. Okay, we'll get started in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and get back on my mat in just a minute. We'll continue our Hips Don't Lie series. This is part 8. And today we'll do a basic movement-based practice. Yes. Hello. Good morning. Good morning, Betsy. I think you're having some issues. I think you'll have to fix that on your TV. Yeah. Hi, Susan and John. Good morning, and hello, Ray. Good to see you all. Thank you for coming today. Welcome to Sun and Moon's Yoga YouTube channel. We're here every weekday from 10 to 10:30. We'll get started in just a moment. A few more people are popping in, so I'll give you a chance to arrive and get settled in. Good morning. Great. Betsy fixed her issue. Good to see you. Hello. Mary Beth, good morning. Good morning, all. Thank you for being here each day. We really appreciate it. We're here every weekday morning from 10 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. We have an archive, so you can go back and check past videos if you'd like. My name is Jennifer Eubank, and I'm here every Friday from 10 to 10:30. And I've been offering a series called The Hips Don't Lie. And today I thought we would finish up that series. We may revisit this idea later, but for now I think we'll wrap up this session, and I'll do something different next week. So today I thought we would take this time to review some of the facts and things that we've learned about the hips and our own hips. And I want to do a movement-based practice. So many times our hips just don't let us stay still. We just can't keep still. We need a little bit of movement. So today's practice will focus on that. And with that being said, let's go ahead and lie back on your mat. So find a comfy spot on your mat, lie back and bend your knees with the feet on the floor. And I'm going to go back and join you. And come back to my own mat. So lie back with your knees bent, feet on the floor, and settle in, snuggle in. Take a moment to make sure everything feels right. You've got the space you need, and you can connect with the earth beneath you. Settle into that stability that the floor is giving you. And connect with your mat and your surrounding space. Take a few breaths. Take a nice deep inhale through your nose and let it go with your mouth if you can. If you don't feel safe doing that, you can keep the mouth closed. The breath can help you settle in a little bit more so. Take your mind into your hip structure. the ilium, the crest, the hip bones that we put our hands on when we put our hands on our hips. So take your mind into those bones, travel down into the hip joints where the legs meet the torso, the pelvis. Maybe visit the pelvis, and as you're ready, take your mind into the back portion, into the sacrum, the part of the spine that's between the hips. And you're resting on that sacrum. Release into your sacrum. Feel the weight on it. And take a few more breaths as you release into that weight on your sacrum. Again, that's the widest part of the spine in between the hips. And where the hips meet the sacrum is the SI joint, and many of us have SI joint issues. And just doing this can be a really nice thing for SI issues if you have them. And then as you're ready, let's take an inhale and bring the knees into the chest and take hold of those legs somehow, some way. Either the hands on the knees, the shins, the calves, or you can put them on the hamstrings, whatever feels right for you. And take a few breaths, working your way into maybe squeezing the knees a little bit more deeply into the chest, and maybe going a little wider with the knees and feet. Just a few breaths. Just kind of notice what's going on with your hips. Maybe take a few circles in one direction and then the other direction. And then as you're ready, finish back into the center. Maybe squeeze the knees a little bit deeper into the chest. Remember, that means we're flexing our hips as we bring those knees into the chest. And then as you're ready, extend them by bringing those legs back down. And just take a little rest here for a moment. And then I want to show you a sequence that's dynamic, it's movement based, and we'll pair it up with the breath. And as you're ready, bring your knees into your chest again, and we'll get started with that sequence, and we'll do it for about 5 minutes, and we can change it up as we see fit. But the sequence goes like this. We bring the knees wide and the feet as well, and then we bring them back together again, and then we extend the legs up to the ceiling, and then we return to that position, and then we bring the arms out to the side and let your knees go down to one side, bring them back up, go to the other side, bring them back up, so you return to the center, then you go wide again with those knees and feet, come back to center, extend up to the ceiling, come back to that return position, extend those arms out, and brace yourself as you bring your knees down to one side into a twist, and keep bracing yourself with those arms and hands as you go to the other side, and we'll keep going. So we go wide, we come together, we extend, we come to the center again, we come out to the side with those arms to brace ourselves for our twists. And we add the breath. So inhale as you squeeze, and exhale as you come out. Inhale back to center. Exhale as you extend. Inhale back to center and bring those arms out. Exhale as you twist. Inhale back to center. Exhale as you twist to the other side and come back, and keep going. And find your rhythm, find your pace, find your range of motion. What's working for you? I'm going to take a little break and scoot over a little bit because I'm getting too close to my wall. And that's interfering with things. So this movement is dynamic in that we're pairing the breath with it. And it's dynamic in that it's also probably changing for you. You're probably going a little deeper and a little bit further each time. A little bit more bold and confident and eased up. And as you do that, you can always add other elements into it. You don't have to be doing exactly what I'm doing. You can, for instance, bring your legs wide and bring them back and do that a couple of times. You know? Maybe extend a couple of times. Extending and flexing. Maybe twist a couple of times. Maybe turn your head in the opposite direction as you bring those knees down. As long as you keep it moving, and as long as you keep the breath pairing up with the movement, and feel a sense of progression, make it your own. Abducting as we bring the knees away from each other. Adducting, ADD, as we bring the legs back. Extending as we bring the legs up, so this is extending, and flexing the hips to bring them in, rotating to twist. All these principal movements. Anytime you want to take a rest, take a rest. And if you want to spend a couple of breaths in each element, you could do that. So I've landed in my twist, and I'm going to stay here for a couple of breaths. And as I'm ready, I use an inhale to come back to center, and an exhale to make my way to the other side. And because I stayed on the other side for a few breaths, I'll do the same over here. And keep going. Let's go about 10 more breaths. 10 more breaths. Make it your own, or maybe follow my sequence. Not my sequence, but the sequence I just told you. Whatever your hips are going to let you do, listen to those messages that the hips are giving you. You know, maybe you don't even want to do the twist part. Maybe your hips won't let you do the twist this morning. Or maybe it's doing kind of a mini twist, your body, you know? And then as you're ready, let's all finish back in wind relief, Apanasana. And take a few breaths here and see if you can bring the knees a little bit deeper into the chest. So after that constant movement, kind of bit by bit making our way to new edges, maybe you have found a new edge and you can go a little bit deeper. Kind of acclimatized your hips to go a little further. And that's what that dynamic movement can really, really be helpful for. Maybe you want to do a few more hip circles. And then as you're ready, let's make our way to one side and roll up and come into a table position. And as you come into your table position, take a few breaths to organize it. Hands under your shoulders and hips under your knees. And maybe shake your hips from side to side. Take a few breaths here. Just get used to your new vantage point. And then as you're ready, I'm going to show you this sequence that I learned from Jackie, one of our teachers here at Sun and Moon. Bring your forearms down to the floor, so you're still in table, but the forearms come down, so we're kind of like in a Sphinx table. And you can keep the toes in the back curled or the tops of the feet on the floor. It's up to you. I keep them curled for this motion. And then it works like this. We lower and come forward in between the hands, and then we come back up And then we make our way back towards puppy and or child's pose. It depends on how far those hips come down. And then you come back up, and then you go forward and down, and then you come back up, and then you make your way back again. So that's the sequence. I call these mini child chaturangas because it's kind of like a chaturanga in our sun salutations, but it's a little bit easier because our forearms are on the floor. And really work on rooting yourself in your knees and the feet in the back, that foundation that you've got in the back, and the foundation that the arms and the hands give you, and coordinate with this breath. I use an exhale to come forward and down, and an inhale to come up, and I exhale as I go back. So again, that's pairing that breath with the movement, and I'm able to go a little bit further each time. And if I don't go further each time, maybe it's just an emotional, psychological further. I feel a little bit more secure. And feel free to spend a few breaths in either of these elements. So you can hang out in the front. This is really good for shoring up those core muscles and the leg muscles, as well as stretching them out. All of these things help to stabilize our hips, and you can stay back in that back position for a few breaths. You can take a break in the middle in your Sphinx table. So whenever you want to take a break, feel free to take a break and spend a few breaths in any of those phases of this sequence. Inhaling with one motion, exhaling with another. My knees are pretty wide and my feet are together in the back, and that gives me a nice little foundation so that I can settle these hips back, and my knees have gotten wider as I have progressed. We'll go a few more rounds. And notice how my arms are out pretty far, so I'm not just going down, I'm going down and forward, and that's what's really making me use these core muscles all up and down my torso, in the belly, up in the chest, in the back, all up and down along the spine. I consider any muscle to be attached, that's attached to the spine, to be a core muscle. So maybe take your mind into those muscles and engage them, and that might help you. And let's take a few more rounds and rest back in our child's position. And I'm going to bring my knees a little bit closer in, because as I rest into child's, they were a little too wide to spend an extended time there. So I brought them in to make this a little bit more palatable for me. Let's take a few breaths in our child's pose. Nice long inhales and nice long exhales. And take your mind into your hip region, the hip joints where the leg bones meet the torso, and the actual hip bones, the crest of the hips, your spine, your sacrum. And then when you're ready, use an inhale to come back up at the table, and let's bring our forearms up into a true table. And let's shake our hips from side to side for a couple of breaths. They might need a little bit of something, something. And then as you're ready, let's come down to our bellies. So lie down onto your belly and bring your legs in, and bring your hands under your shoulders, and snuggle your arms close into the body. And we'll get ready for some cobra poses. So if you do cobra a lot, find your cobra position. You might like those toes curled, you might want the tops of the feet on the floor. You decide. Make your legs nice and strong and your glute muscles strong to protect and stabilize those hips, and organize the top half of your body, snuggle those arms in, and as you're ready, we'll do these dynamically. So we'll use an inhale to lift the chest up off the floor, and we'll use an exhale to lower it back down. And again, this is dynamic movement, so we go small at first. Little baby cobras. Find your way, find your range of motion, find your rhythm, find your breath coordination. I use an inhale as I rise up and an exhale as I lower back down, but sometimes I change it up. Sometimes I live life on the edge and exhale as I lift up and inhale as I come back down. So you might want to try both ways and see which works better for you. See if one allows you to come up higher than the other, or more comfortably, or just different. Try not to judge it, just observations, just notice the differences. And anytime you want to take a break, you can take a break anytime. Perhaps you come down for a few breaths, and when you're ready, you can rejoin. Maybe you want to stay in a cobra up in the up position for a few breaths. Make sure you're not pressing too much into those hands. You're really using the belly to lift up the core muscles, not just the belly. It starts there, but the legs, the butt, even the rib muscles, the muscles inside and outside the ribs are helping to pick you up. And if you're not sure if you're using your hands too much, you can always lift those hands off the floor and let them just hover above the floor. And then you can really tell, okay, I'm using the muscles in the torso, the front, the back, the bottom, the top, all of these muscles working together to lift me up. Inhaling with one motion and exhaling with another. And if you'd like more of a challenge, you can turn this into a locust and put the hands by the sides and lift both ends up. Inhale, lift the chest and the legs up. And exhale back down, or maybe you're exhaling up into your locust and inhaling back down. I'm going to take a rest. You take a rest anytime you want. Let's go 10 more breaths, 10 more rounds. So if you're resting and you want a few more rotations, go for it. Or if you're ready to take a rest, you can come on down. And let's, as we come into our rest, stack the hands one on top of the other, and then put the forehead on top of the hands, and keep the legs straight behind you. And maybe they're touching, maybe they're not. I should have mentioned that earlier. And rustle your hips from side to side. And then when you're ready, bring the feet wide. Maybe as wide as the corners of your mat. So now you're in crocodile position. And then rag those hips again. And then when you're ready, let's bring everything back in. And let's use an inhale to press up into a table. And then let's turn our table into a seat. And the last part of our practice this morning, we'll do in a seated position. So if you'd like a blanket for some support, grab that blanket. Again, that really supports and cushions my hips and allows me more comfort. So I rarely sit on the floor without a blanket anymore. So as you come into your seated mountain position, take just a few breaths to organize your seat. Make sure it feels right, you've got all your props, and settle into it. Maybe wriggle your sits bones from side to side. You can even pull the flesh out so you can really feel those sits bones rooting onto your surface. And draw the belly in and lift your sternum, kind of lift those ribs away from your hips, bringing space to the whole front of your torso, the sides, as well as the back. But don't make it a stiff space. Keep those shoulders nice and relaxed, knees relaxed, and take just a few moments to notice. Maybe close the eyes. And then when you're ready, let's extend our legs into staff pose. So we've gone from easy to staff. We extend our legs, and if you flex the feet and point the toes towards the ceiling, that starts things going in the legs. That gets them engaged, and that shores up your stance here. And for me, the legs being strong automatically sends a message here to pull in my belly and sit up a little bit taller. So I'm using all of the muscles in my body to maintain this position. Belly is drawn in, the back is soft and relaxed, hips are relaxed. And I have just a little bit of tension in the back, just a little, just to keep my spine straight. And from here, we will do a forward fold. So we've been doing all dynamic movement, and we're now in a still pose, but we can put a little bit of dynamic, slight movement into our forward fold and kind of acclimatize ourselves. So as you sit in your staff pose, forward fold is about coming forward, but don't think about it in terms of reaching for your toes or bringing your head down. Just think about it in terms of hinging your hips. That's all you're going to do. You're sitting nice and tall. You've stabilized things. You've got the muscles in the legs working, and you've got the muscles in the entire torso working, but not overworking, because that's very important. And press into the legs and keep those toes pointing towards the ceiling, and simply start to hinge at your hips. Hinge forward. So my head hasn't gone anywhere. It's not going down. It's staying right where it was when I started. And I'm simply hinging. And as I hinge, my body comes forward. And my chest gets a little closer to these legs. It's not ready to meet. Maybe it will touch today, maybe it won't. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm trying, and I'm and I'm hinging my hips. I am flexing because I'm bending, bringing the lower body closer to the upper body. And anytime this gets tough for you, you could always back off and start over. You can back all the way to the beginning and re-stabilize things and start all over again. And go bit by bit. And maybe see if you can go further each time. We're kind of acclimatizing our hips. I've been watching Mount Everest specials, watching them climb up the mountain. And they're constantly going up and down, and they go a little further each time to acclimatize their bodies to the lack of oxygen up on the mountain. And I've been really thinking about that in terms of my yoga, acclimatizing, going back and forth. And sometimes that really helps me go a little further. And really, again, it's not about how far you go, it's about finding new edges and respecting those edges, acknowledging them, welcoming them, and backing off of them when it gets too much. Like, okay, I'm ready to come up. So I'm going to really keep those legs strong and come up a little bit more. I'm going to hang out here, and then I'm going to drop my head at the very end because I'd like to really enjoy this. And I'm going to bring my head up again, and I'm going to go back down a little bit further because I've decided, you know what, I want to go a little bit further and then bring my head down some more. And when you bring the head down, you'll feel it more in your upper back. When your head is up, you'll feel it a little bit more in your legs. And I think it's very important to keep that head up and to come back up, press into the legs, and you're simply hinging to come back up. So we hinge to go forward and we hinge to come back up. And the head is always stacked right up on top of that spine so that it's not creating weight for our lower back as we make our way down. So now we're back up in staff pose. Take a few breaths. Notice if your staff pose feels any different after doing those forward folds. Engage the legs, engage the muscles in your trunk, the front, the back, the sides. Relax the shoulders, the hips, and the knees. Soften your face. Take a few more breaths. And then when you're ready, let's return into easy pose. I always opt for fire log legs, so my legs are not actually easy, one is on top of the other. I find that it's better for my hips to align themselves and be balanced to have both legs down. That's what works for me. So you find what works for you to find good, stable, level hips in a nice, stable seat, and take a few more breaths, noticing, feeling, maybe close the eyes. And as you're ready, we can bring our hands to heart center. Thank you so much for joining me today in this session. Namaste. Thank you, thank you. Again, I'm Jennifer Eubank. I'm here every Friday from 10 to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, and the studio is here each weekday morning, 10 to 10:30. So please join us each day, and please take a look at our archives. And I will see you next Friday. And I have decided in our practice today that we will focus on the ribs. So I made that decision. And I hope you will join me and we can do some rib work. Get in touch with our ribs. Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Wear your masks and don't touch surfaces that you don't have to. Use your body to walk up those steps, but go easy on those hips. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you. It was so good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. Ray, good to see you each week. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Oh, and Greg Man. Oh, Greg Man. Yay. Greg Man painted that painting. Oh, good to see you, Betsy. Good to see everybody. Hope everybody is staying safe. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and sign off.